I work as a security guard for a company that takes jobs no one else will. Part 5. I know a lot of you guys have been eager to see an update, but I've been too busy with work to update more frequently. I'll try to update more often. Anyway, here I am with some more stories from my company. The first story I'm going to tell you is about a big office building our company has a contract with. I never personally worked there, but some of the guys I know did. One of the guards told me about the place in more detail. Apparently, it's a normal office building where people work a regular 9-to-5 job, but our guards need to be there 24/7, from around 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. until all employees leave. It's pretty leisure. However, the guards and the employees have one strict rule to follow. The building has no doors, including the one at the entrance. So at first glance, it looks really strange to see all these offices, bathrooms, etc., with naked door frames. After the employees leave, guards are to conduct patrols every hour until the end of the shift. They have to make sure all the door frames have no doors on them, and should they spot an actual door anywhere on the premises, they are to make sure it isn't closed. If the door was open or at least left slightly ajar, the guards would need to put one of those door holders on the ground to prevent the door from closing. The guards would carry a bunch of door holders on patrols just for this purpose. If the door was closed, however, they were ordered not to go near it under any circumstances. They also had a map of the building and had to memorize where each room was, making sure that the layout of the rooms was exactly how it was on the map, including the direction the office desks and furniture were facing, etc. Now, the guard who told me this shared his own experience with me. He said that everything was calm for the first few months, and then during one of his night shift patrols, he ran into a door on the second floor which was slightly ajar. He could see an office space behind the door, and following the instructions, he pulled out his door holder and went to put it in front of the door. However, as he did so, he apparently stumbled forward and actually pushed the door, which shut with a loud click. He swears he couldn't have just fallen like that, so he firmly believes something or someone somehow made him fall. When he saw that he accidentally shut the door, the guy panicked and decided to push everything under the rug by quickly opening the door, hoping no one would notice. But he says that when he opened it, that office was no longer there. He was instead looking at the bathroom. He thought he was in the wrong place at first, because there was no way the bathroom would be there. So when he double-checked, sure enough he was right. The office space he initially saw was supposed to be there, so he closed the door and opened it again. This time, he was staring at the kitchen. Fascinated by the whole thing, he kept closing and opening the door over and over, seeing all the different rooms from the building. He said he would have gone on some more, but his partner radioed him to ask how far he was in his sweep. The guy ended up closing and opening the door for a few more minutes until he finally saw that same office again. He placed the door holder on the floor and bolted back to the security room. He reported the appearance of the door to HQ, leaving out the details about closing and opening it. Everything was fine that night, but the following morning he was called by his boss, who asked him what the fuck he was thinking closing the door like that. The guard was confused about how his boss knew. The boss told him that apparently some of the rooms had shifted around and now the entire office building was completely jumbled up. No one was harmed, and nothing really happened other than that, save for the only other inconvenience being the workers having to make their way from the third floor all the way to the ground floor to use the bathrooms. He continued working there, but never saw another door again. One specific story which stands out for me is from a guard who was stationed as security in a residential house between 9 p.m. and 4 a.m. The owners, a married couple, lived there, and they would leave the house every night at 8 p.m., and the guard who was appointed was told by the owners that the duties were fairly simple. HQ briefed the guard before he started working by giving him a list of rules to follow. Here's the transcript of the written rules. Duty starts at 9 p.m. However, make sure to be there at least 1 hour earlier. Before leaving your home for duty, take a sharp object and leave it inside your home near the exit, for instance, on the shoe stand. Any sharp object will do. However, the sharper the better, preferably something that can easily puncture skin. If you can't make it at least 30 minutes before 9 p.m. to the house where you perform your duty, inform HQ and skip your shift. Do not attempt to enter the house at or after 9 p.m. under any circumstances. Once inside and owners leave, follow these rules carefully. 9 to 10 p.m. You can move freely throughout the house, with the exception of entering the basement. 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Stay in the living room during the entire hour. Do not leave the room under any circumstances. Do not leave the house either. If you need to use a bathroom, use a bottle or any other means. 11 p.m. to 11:23 p.m. You will hear someone knocking on the window. Avoid looking at it. The knocking may become relentless and loud, but do not look at it. You may turn on the TV for distraction. 11:23 p.m. to midnight. The knocking may have stopped by now, but you now may hear children crying upstairs. Ignore it. No children reside in the house. Midnight to 0:25 a.m. You may move freely around the first floor of the house, although it is advised you stay in the living room kitchen area and prepare for your next step. 0:25 to 0:30 a.m. Below the sink in the kitchen is a bucket full of fresh meat. Take it to the basement. You do not need to enter the basement. You can simply leave the bucket near the door inside. But make sure to close and lock the door again. A very important thing to note here. Make sure you do not spill or drop any blood or meat from the bucket on the floor anywhere outside the basement, since it can accurately smell blood up to a mile away. If you happen to spill any blood, do not bother cleaning. Simply follow the next step. 0:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. You may hear growling noises coming from the basement. Do not bother investigating. If you have previously spilled any blood around the house, do not bother cleaning up and instead sit on the couch. Turn on the TV and turn up the volume to the max. Clasp your ears with your hands and keep your eyes firmly shut. Face the ground and stay in this position until 1 a.m. If there is a pause on the TV for more than a few seconds, try to produce any loud sound of your own by screaming or speaking loudly to drown out any unnatural noises you may hear. 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. You may freely move throughout the entire house again, basement excluded. This is a time to use for bathroom breaks. Do not attempt to leave the house. You should also use this time to memorize the room layouts, furniture especially. During this hour, you may hear a voice coming from the bedroom of the second floor. If you do, investigate. If there is a man in the room, lock the door and return to the living room immediately. Do not attempt to talk to the man. If the room is empty, you may continue to move freely. 2 a.m. to 3:33 a.m. Nothing major will happen during this hour. Ignore any ringing of the phone. Do not pick it up no matter how much it rings. 3:33 a.m. to 3:55 a.m. Now is the time to take stock of all the furniture in the house. If you see any extra furnishing, do not sit on it or touch it in any way. You will start to feel extremely sleepy by this point. Whatever you do, you must not fall asleep. It is recommended you spend this time in the kitchen and leave the sink water running so you can splash your face whenever your eyelids become too heavy. 3:55 a.m. to 4 a.m. The owners will have returned by now. Before leaving, make sure to say aloud the sentence, "My duty is finished." Note that if you do not do it, upon entering your home, you'll find that you are back in the house of the owners. Should this be the case, then you only have one option. Take the sharp object you left close to the door and inflict mild damage to yourself. Minor stab in the forearm or hand, etc. If the house doesn't change to your own home, repeat the previous step until it does. He just quit after one night. The last story I'll share today is about a place I was supposed to work in, but luckily said no. This was apparently a big lodge, deep inside a forest, and HQ had a ton of people waiting in line to work there. There were no duties there, no guarding, no paranormal rules, nothing. So when I asked what's the catch, they said the guards can never leave the place until another one takes over. When I laughed, the chief stared at me. He went on to explain that there have been cases of people wanting to quit in the middle of their shift, but whenever they do, something happens which prevents them from leaving. Either a huge storm, an accident, injury, suddenly coming down with a fever severe enough to stop them from moving, etc. One guy even tried calling his friends to pick him up, but the friend ended up getting lost in the woods. Another guy tried leaving despite the thick snowstorm, but as he trekked through the snow, he ended up right back at the house. He claims there was no way he could have been back there, since he only went straight, and yet there he was. HQ has all these guards in line ready to take over, in case someone fails to show up for their shift, and the guard who was previously there is stranded. They still don't know how the lodge works or why anyone has to be there, but all they do know is that one person always has to be there. The even stranger thing, no one in HQ knows how and when they signed a contract for this place. Whoever the client is, he is sending payments to the company every month and it is impossible to track down. Well, that's it for now. I'll update you guys again in a few days, since there's been a bunch more stories to share. This is Kinetic Symphony. If you've enjoyed this narrated story, please subscribe and like the video to help me grow. Thank you.